Shona Murray, EU correspondent in Dublin. Thanks very much indeed. Well, while the European Union is now trying to focus on providing a united response to the pandemic, more questions are being asked about how individual leaders handled the crisis in their countries. An exclusive Euronews poll looks at who did well and who underperformed. Neil O'Reilly reports.
As the virus spread across Europe, all countries struggled to respond, some more than others. So how did citizens view their government's handling of the crisis? In partnership with Euronews, polling company Redfield and Wilton canvassed a broad range of opinion in Germany, Italy and France, with mixed news for authorities in each. In Germany, which had a relatively low death toll, people wholeheartedly backed their government's efforts. More than half of Italians say their national leadership responded well, but 63% of the French view their government's management as poor. That's reflected to some degree in the approval ratings of each leader in their own country. Chancellor Merkel, President Macron and Prime Minister Conte all enjoyed a rise in support early in the crisis. But that support has since eroded for the French leader. Almost half the country disapproves of Macron's handling of the pandemic, with only 6% strongly approving. More than 7 out of 10 Germans view Merkel's performance positively, while a substantial majority of Italians either approve or strongly approve of Conte's leadership. The French and Italians also admire Merkel's approach. Those figures could change as countries reopen after lockdown, a task which sees governments trying to balance health concerns with saving their economies. We asked people what their priorities were in this equation, and the results might seem surprising in Italy, given the high death toll. A slim majority said they were more concerned about the economic impact of the crisis. But 60% of Germans are more preoccupied by their health, as are 7 out of 10 French people. The survey also shed light on Europe's nationalist reflex in a time of crisis. Many governments quickly moved to close their borders, a response largely supported by their citizens. In all 3 countries, roughly a third of people strongly agreed that national borders were crucial for maintaining their nation's security. Only between 8 and 12% disagreed. The poll has given much for governments to reflect on as they cautiously ease restrictions and prepare for the possibility of a second wave of infections. Neil O'Reilly, Euronews.
Well, Italy was at the initial epicentre of the COVID crisis in Europe and the first in the EU to impose lockdown. And yet, as we just saw, Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte has risen in public opinion. Well, to tell us more about the mood there, Silvia Boccardi joins us now from Milan. Thanks very much for coming onto the programme, Silvia. Tell us about the Italian reaction. The country suffered enormously, the first to impose lockdown that's since had more than 30,000 deaths. How has all that shaped the attitude of Italians towards their government?
Well, yeah. Although Italy has been struck violently by the virus with more than 33,000 deaths and more than 230,000 infections, Conte's online sentiment has not been affected by the emergency, what rather has been strengthened. That's not the same for the rest of the government, because Italians show that they think there was room for improvement. It might be because of the number of deaths, the draconian measure for the lockdown, and also the speed of the response to the virus. But there definitely was a big discrepancy between the approval of Conte and the approval of the government. Also, another result of the poll that is interesting to look at is how we looked at the other countries' response. For instance, Sweden has been a positive example for us. It might be because the lockdown was viewed negatively by the Italian public, and also Italians think that Germany handled it quite well. It might be because of the extreme lockdown and the higher deaths and the similar number of infections that we had. So it might be because the Italian measured the success of the virus handling in terms of the number of deaths rather than the number of infections. We'll see what Conte says and how he handles it, the post-virus.
Silvia Boccardi, thanks very much for joining us there from Milan. Well, Germany's Chancellor